Salam, peace be upon you. My name is Muhammad Layak Sidiqui, the father of Holophase. Part 20.5 Existence versus Legibility. What is there versus what can be read? Let us begin with something ordinary. A child stands beside a pond and looks into the water. The surface is bright with reflected sky. Reeds sway at the edges. For a while, the child sees nothing moving below. Then the child says with complete confidence, "There are no fish here." An older person beside the child smiles and says, "You cannot say that yet." Why not? Because the child has made one of the oldest mistakes in thought. The child has confused what is there with what can currently be read. The fish may be deep below the surface. They may be hidden by weeds. The angle of light may make the water mirror-like. The child may be standing in the wrong place. The fish may move only at dusk. The child may not yet know what signs to look for. The fish may be real even though through this present window they are not yet legible. That is the heart of this chapter. A pattern may exist while remaining non-legible under current access conditions. This is not a small correction. It is one of the great protections of rigorous thought. It stops us from making a false leap. "I did not find it" becomes "it is not there." "No pattern is certified here" becomes "there is no pattern anywhere." "Current tools do not detect it" becomes "reality contains nothing more." Part 20.5 exists to block that leap. It does not deny knowledge. It does not weaken science. It does not invite fantasy. It does not say that everything hidden is real. It says something more disciplined and more honest. Pattern existence and pattern legibility are not the same thing. A pattern may be there whether or not we can presently read it. Legibility depends on windows, tools, transformations, resources, and framework maturity. Existence is not exhausted by current readability. This distinction matters because by the time we reach this part of the roadmap, we have already built a very careful science of public pattern. We have learned that pattern is primary. We have learned that primitive comparability is circular. We have learned that only relations are public. We have learned that every public claim comes through a finite window. We have learned that every claim must declare its type. We have learned that difference is the first readable phase of pattern. We have learned how local change becomes readable through leaves and carriers. We have learned that pattern language has lawful limits. We have learned that persistence means identity surviving through change under declared tolerances. Now, one final humility must be installed. Even when all of that discipline is in place, reality may still outrun present readability. That is not failure, that is structure. And science becomes more mature, not less, when it admits this. The fundamental distinction. Let us state the two ideas as clearly as possible. Pattern existence. Pattern existence means the pattern is there, regardless of whether we can currently certify it. It belongs to reality, not merely to our present success in reading it. Pattern legibility. Pattern legibility means the pattern can be read, resolved, and certified under current access conditions. Current windows, current tools, current transformations, current resources, current uncertainty limits, current conceptual framework. These are different categories. If we do not separate them, then every failure of current access quietly becomes a claim about reality itself. That is a corruption. Think again of the stars. At noon, the stars are not legible to the naked eye, but they still exist. A radio signal, lost in static, may remain real even when unreadable. An early infection may exist before available tests detect it. A text written in an unknown language still has structure even when unreadable to you. A distant mountain hidden by mist still has ridges, valleys, and snow even when you cannot see its detail. In every case, existence exceeds present legibility. That is the distinction this chapter installs. Why the distinction is necessary. Without this distinction, science begins to make one of its most seductive mistakes. It quietly treats present method as if it were the full measure of reality. What goes wrong? First, not found becomes not there. A pattern is not detected in one study, in one region, with one instrument, under one threshold, and the conclusion is drawn that it does not exist. Second, absence of evidence gets treated as evidence of absence. Sometimes, in very tightly defined conditions, lack of evidence can count strongly against a claim. But most of the time, people use this phrase far too loosely. They forget to ask what kind of access was actually available. Third, current methodological limits masquerade as ontological verdicts. A science says, our present tools do not read this, therefore reality contains no such thing. That is not science. That is present access flattering itself into metaphysics. Fourth, science becomes prematurely totalizing. It begins to sound complete before it is complete. It begins to speak as though current windows, current concepts, and current instruments already exhaust what can matter. This is exactly what part 20.5 must stop. Not because science should become weak, but because science should never confuse its present reach with the whole of reality. A mountain in the haze. Imagine standing in a valley on a hazy morning. Nearby trees are sharp. The lower slopes of the mountain are clear, but the distant peaks disappear into whiteness. Do the distant peaks exist? Of course they do. They are there with their rock faces, eyes, fractures, and ridges. Their existence does not depend on your ability to read them through mist. But are they legible through your current window? Not fully. That is the whole chapter in one image. The mountain is reality. The haze is an access condition. Your eyes are tools. Your position is a window placement. Your inability to read the far ridges is a legibility limit, not an ontological proof of absence. Now imagine someone saying, I do not see the far peaks, therefore there are none. That sounds absurd in ordinary life. Yet in science, people make the same move constantly. Part 20.5 simply says, stop doing that. 4. Modes of non-legibility. A real pattern may escape present certification for many different reasons. This matters because not all unreadability is the same. 4.1. Below current resolution. The pattern may exist at a finer scale than the current window can resolve. A woven fabric looks smooth from far away. Under magnification, the weave appears. A cell may look uniform until finer tools reveal internal structure. A social pattern may disappear when data is too coarse. 4.2. Obscured by noise. The pattern may be present but buried in fluctuation. A whisper exists in a noisy room. A faint pulse exists inside detector noise. A subtle emotional shift exists inside a chaotic day. Noise does not erase reality, it blocks current readability. 4.3. Outside current windows. The pattern may lie beyond where we looked. A fish may be in the pond, but not near the shore. A species may exist in the forest, but outside the camera trap's range. A social trend may exist in communities your survey never sampled. 4.4. Hidden by aliasing. The pattern may be present, but the sampling method may distort it. A spinning wheel on film may appear still or backward. A periodic signal sampled badly may counterfeit another pattern. A stripe pattern may blur into flat gray. 4.5. Inaccessible to available transformations. Some patterns require the right representation before they become visible. A hidden rhythm may emerge only after filtering. A geometric relation may appear only after recharting the data. A relational network may remain invisible inside a list-based description. 4.6. Blocked by computational infeasibility. A pattern may be there in principle, but current resources cannot lawfully extract it. A huge combinatorial structure may be too costly to search. A deep pattern in large data may be beyond feasible computation. A proof may exist before anyone can find it. 4.7. Concealed by framework immaturity. Reality may exceed the vocabulary of the current science. Before germ theory, infection patterns existed. Before genetics, hereditary structure existed. Before plate tectonics, continents still moved. Patterns often become legible only after a framework matures enough to host them. 4.8. Non-identifiable under current access. A pattern may be real, but the evidence available does not uniquely determine it. Several structures may fit the same data. The window may be too limited to distinguish them. The pattern may exist but remain non-identifiable under the active regime. All of these are forms of non-legibility. None of them automatically imply non-existence. Legibility depends on many variables. Legibility is not a simple yes or no property built into the pattern alone. It is a relation between pattern and access. It depends on window size and placement, sampling density, measurement sensitivity, read depth or derivative ceiling, uncertainty budgets, available transformations, computational resources, calibration quality, framework vocabulary, and distinctions. This is crucial. If legibility depends on access regime, then a failure of reading is not yet a final statement about what is there. It is first a statement about what this access regime can and cannot lawfully resolve. So when a pattern is not certified, a mature science must ask, was the window too narrow? Was the sampling too sparse? Was the signal too weak? Was the transformation wrong? Was the concept missing? Was the computation infeasible? Was the pattern non-identifiable in principle under this regime? That is a more honest science than merely saying nothing was there. Legibility is not only about better instruments. This part must make another important point. Non-legibility is not solved only by building stronger tools. Sometimes better instruments help, but sometimes the problem is different. We may need a new transformation, a new invariant, a new decomposition method, a new charting strategy, a new stitching technique, a new theory distinction, a new way of asking the question. Rosalind Franklin's diffraction image contained structure before Watson and Crick found the right conceptual reading of it. The pattern was there. Better ideas mattered as much as better apparatus. So legibility can fail for empirical reasons, computational reasons, structural reasons, or conceptual reasons. Reality is not simply waiting for a larger hammer. Sometimes it is waiting for a more intelligent key. The ontological humility principle. We can now state the chapter's central principle. Failure to certify a pattern does not imply pattern non-existence. It implies non-legibility under current access. This principle is not skepticism. It is interpretive discipline. It does not say every hidden thing is real. It does not say public science cannot make strong claims. It does not say negative results are worthless. It says only this: a certification outcome must be read within the declared access regime. If the outcome is negative, then what we know publicly is that the pattern is not certifiable under current scope. That is already meaningful, but it is not automatically the same as a final statement about what reality contains. This is humility, but not collapse. It keeps science open without making it vague. This is not a retreat into skepticism. At this point, some readers may worry. If a pattern may exist beyond present readability, does that mean anything goes? Does it mean every hidden possibility deserves equal respect? No. This chapter blocks two opposite mistakes: the mistake of closure, if unreadable, unreal; the mistake of fantasy, if unreadable, anything is possible and equally acceptable. Both are wrong. Possibility is not certification. Openness is not endorsement. Humility is not credulity. A disciplined science can say, there may be more than we currently read, and at the same time say, not every imagined hidden pattern deserves belief. That balance is the point. Relation to the null pattern. This distinction prepares the next chapter, so it must be made very clearly. Existence versus legibility. This asks, what may be real beyond present readability? Null pattern. This asks, what is the lawful public verdict when no pattern is certifiable under current declared conditions? These are different. A null result says no pattern is certifiable here, now, under this scope. Part 20.5 says, do not silently convert that null into ontological absence. So the two chapters work together. Part 20.5 protects interpretation. Part 20.6 defines the formal negative verdict. Without Part 20.5, the null becomes too strong and turns into hidden metaphysics. Without Part 20.6, openness to unreadable reality becomes too loose and turns into vagueness. Together, they keep the science honest. 10. The deep ocean and the hidden world. For most of human history, the deep ocean was almost entirely non-legible. Hydrothermal vents existed, strange organisms existed, abyssal plains existed, giant pressure systems existed. None of them waited for human awareness in order to become real. They existed before submersibles. They existed before cameras could descend there. They existed before science had a stable vocabulary for them. Their existence outran our legibility. This matters because history itself teaches the lesson of this chapter. Reality often exists before its public readability arrives. Microscopic life existed before microscopes. Planetary systems existed before telescopes could reveal them. Dark structures in cosmology may exist before direct detectors can read them. Social patterns often exist before institutions learn to see them. Psychological patterns may shape a life before the person has language for them. So, this chapter is not merely a logical nicety, it reflects how knowledge actually grows. A medical example. Consider a patient in pain. A scan is clear. A lab marker is normal. A quick reader says nothing is there. That is exactly the error this chapter forbids. The discipline conclusion is not there is no real pattern. The discipline conclusion is under these current windows, tools, and tests, the relevant pattern is not presently legible. That difference matters ethically as well as scientifically. It protects patients from being erased by instrument limits. It protects science from confusing current methods with the whole of reality. And it protects against the opposite error too, declaring every hidden possibility real without discipline. So even here, the chapter's balance remains open but not loose, careful but not closed. A child, a radio, and a language. Three simple examples make the distinction vivid. A child cannot read the book on the table because the language is unknown. The text exists. Legibility is absent for that reader. A radio in a tunnel fills with static. The broadcast may still exist. Legibility has dropped. A child listening to a forest may say it is silent, while an adult hears insects, wind gradients, far water, and distant birds. The sounds existed in both cases. Legibility differed. These cases matter because they show that existence beyond present readability is not mysterious. It is ordinary life. Scientific humility as structured honesty. This chapter deepens a lesson that has been growing since the discussion of Windows. Humility is not weakness. Humility is structural honesty about access. Window humility says, all access is finite. Existence legibility humility says, because access is finite, what can presently be certified does not exhaust what may exist. This does not weaken strong science, it strengthens trustworthy science. A weak science says, we cannot read it, therefore it is not real. A mature science says, here is what we can certify. Here is what remains unreadable under the current regime. Here is the exact difference. That is a stronger posture, not a weaker one. The rigor layer. Because this chapter can easily be abused, it needs strong gates. Scope gate. Any statement about non-legibility must declare the access regime. Legibility gate. The claim must state what current methods can and cannot resolve. UNC gate. Uncertainty sources must be disclosed. Non-identifiability gate. Unreadability must be distinguished from mere noise or temporary weak evidence. Anti-overreach gate. No ontological conclusion may exceed lawful evidential support. These gates ensure that talk about hidden or unreadable patterns remains disciplined and public. Firewalls. This chapter explicitly blocks several corruptions. Epistemic absolutism. What cannot be read does not exist. Instrumental triumphalism. Current tools see all that matters. Framework closure smuggling. Our theory exhausts reality. Null inflation. No certified pattern here becomes no pattern anywhere. Ignorance mystification. Since some things may be hidden, every hidden story is equally valid. All of this must be blocked if science is to remain both rigorous and open. What this chapter installs. By the end of part 20.5, the following outputs are stable. Existence and legibility are distinct. Non-certification does not equal non-existence. Certification outcomes must be interpreted within access regimes. Non-legibility may arise from many different causes. Scientific humility becomes an interpretive rule. The null pattern is now properly delimited. Later discussions of identifiability gain a stronger base. This is not decorative philosophy. It is operational protection. What the chapter must refuse. This part fails if it becomes radical skepticism. It fails if it treats all unreadable possibilities as equally plausible. It fails if it collapses unreadability into null certification. It fails if it turns hidden possibility into a license for fantasy. It fails if it confuses possible with certifiable. So the chapter must walk a narrow but essential path. not closed, not gullible, not arrogant, not vague. That path is the real rigor of this distinction. Final synthesis. Let us say the whole chapter in the simplest possible way. The world is often larger than what current access can read. That does not mean we know nothing. It means we must speak carefully. A pattern may exist before it becomes legible. A pattern may remain real while current tools miss it. A pattern may be hidden by scale, noise, aliasing, poor transformations, weak calibration, computational limits, or conceptual immaturity. Therefore, what we can read is not all that exists. What exists is not all that we can currently read. This is not defeat. It is the discipline that keeps science from mistaking its present reach for the whole of reality. Closing image. Ships in the fog. Imagine standing on a beach at dawn, looking out over a sea covered in fog. You cannot see the ships beyond the mist. The discipline statement is, from here, now, under this visibility, no ship is legible. That is already true. That is already public. That is already useful. But it is not the same as saying there are no ships on the sea. That extra step would be an overreach. Part 20.5 exists to stop that overreach. It teaches science how to remain exact without pretending to be complete. And once that distinction is safely installed, the next question becomes unavoidable. If unreadable does not mean unreal, what is the formal public verdict when no pattern is certifiable under the current declared scope? That is the work of the next part. Part 20.6, the null pattern, where science learns how to say, with full rigor and no overreach, no pattern is certifiable here, now, under this scope. Always, peace be upon you.